toilet flush valve for the innards in the toilet, in the back of the toilet, one may wonder what parts are necessary to have the proper flush, etc. And then there are other things to consider too. Say, for instance, if the water rises at a certain level, and to prevent the water from rising above a certain level and filling over in the tank and spilling over into the floor, and not from the bowl, the actual tank itself, behind the bowl. So if one removes the lid, they may see a gadget something like this. This is called a flush valve. So yeah, I think this is the name. Any expert plumbers can add to the comments here. But the valve here itself, what happens is when the tank fills up, it has a flapper right here. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is just a tip, and this is just my opinion. Now, they make different sizes. They make like a 2 or a 3. I like the larger hole, like the 3, because this gives you a better flush when you flush the toilet. This will give you when the flapper rises, but essentially there will be 2 dog ears on here, say they are protruding out this way. Then the flapper will sit on top of this hole. Now, another thing to keep in mind is when this flapper, over a period of time, the water can actually get to where it deforms, it say swells, contracts, shrinks, expands, contracts, etc. So every so often change this, because if not, if the flapper is not making a perfect seal on this hole here all the way around, this water, you may hear your toilet go 15 minutes later or 10 minutes later, you may hear it. And if this is the case, say if one dropped red food coloring or green food coloring in the back of the tank, waited about an hour or 2 before using the restroom, and come in, and if the dye has leached into the bowl, it hasn't been flushed in a couple of hours, then this tank needs to be rebuilt, and definitely this flapper here, because it lets water. And do keep in mind, this is the number one thing to run your water bill up. So at this point, the toilet either needs to be rebuilt, or if the toilet's over 7 years old, my suggestion or my opinion is it's good to go ahead and just change and get a new toilet. But notwithstanding, so, and then you may want to call your water company, get a receipt from your plumber if the plumber does it, and then tell them the problem's been fixed. Some water companies or utilities may adjust your water bill if you get an inordinately high water bill. So basically, the flapper goes onto these 2 little ears. It covers this hole. This is, I think, a smaller one. I like the larger hole, because what happens is more water. So what happens on this thing here, say for instance, when you flush the toilet, the water actually, water will deplete, and then when the water depletes, the fill valve will start to fill the water back up, and it'll go up. So then one may ask, well, this is weird because it's got a little tube on the top, and absolutely it's got a tube on the top. So, and then the little rubber hose sometimes will attach to this and go in here. So, and one may ask, well, what is this for? This is safe hypothetically if the water gets up above here and crests over, the water will go down in the hole without filling the tank all the way up and spilling into the floor. So it's kind of like an overflow. So, and if you note the fill valve down here, there's a little hole right here. And if you note, there's, say right in here, there's a hole. So any water overflow that overflows in here can actually come out here. And if you do note that this hole is below where the flapper would be, so technically the flapper would sit on top, and then the hole there, I'm trying to get an angle where one can see it, but the hole there will be below the flapper. So what would happen, I'm assuming, and you know, if there's people that know a lot more than I do, but basically if this water gets up, it goes over here as opposed to coming up and spilling out onto the floor. Then it goes through, and the excess water from the overflow will go back into the bowl of the toilet. So this is what a fill valve looks like. I mean a flush valve, not a fill valve. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. This is what a flush valve looks like for a plumbing toilet, and this is part of the guts in the back of the toilet, and this is a necessary part. And if this one, again, to reiterate, if this flapper is over, it's good to change the flapper about once a year to keep it fresh. So because water kind of deforms it, so just to keep it so your toilet's operating in the proper fashion. Flush valve for a toilet. Thank you for watching.